All right, so today is October 1st. What the heck? We're already done with September. That went way too quick. Oh, I gave you guys the work keys bell ringer, my bad. So that's probably makes more sense. Okay, so it's October already, whoa. We're going to jump into the crime scene investigation and do evidence 4 and 5 today. I'm gonna do like 3 problems from each one and then give you the rest of the time to work on it on your own. I've assigned it on teachermade.com. You can go in here and do the worksheet on this website and then turn it in here. Or if you would prefer in our Google Classroom, how I shared the crime scene investigation on the Google Doc. You can click on this once it loads. And you can type your answers in here on this as well, and then turn that in on Google Classroom, just whichever one you prefer. The teacher made is nice because it kind of breaks it up into chunks. This one is just everything all together. So whichever one works better for you. So just submit it when you're finished. It's not due until Monday, and we're going to have about 15 minutes in class today to work on it. So let me do this. Okay, so we're going to be solving equations with variables on both sides today. So we have, here's the steps that I have listed out to help with solving equations. It's just, I'm a very routine person and I like to have steps. So maybe if this helps me, it might help some of you. So step 1 is to simplify one or both sides of the equation if possible. So if it has like 2 x's on one side, to simplify that. Or if it has 2 numbers that can be added together, then simplifying it that way as well. Step 2 is to move variables to one side and numbers to the opposite side. So you want your variables all together on one side, the numbers all together on the other. And then step 3 is to isolate the variable and solve for x. So we're going to jump in and do evidence 4. So I'm going to start with problem number 1. Okay, so number 1, I have 7x plus 25 equals 8x minus 2. So I want to get my variables on one side and my numbers on the other because I can't simplify this because I can't bring together my x and a number and I can't bring together an x and a number. So I'm going to move my variables, so anything with an x, to the other side. With the 8, I'm going to move 7x to this side. That way I keep my variable positive. Then I'm going to bring my number over here. So in order to move the 7x, I have to do the opposite. And since it's positive 7x, I'm going to do subtract 7x. What I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. 8x minus 7x gives me x. And a positive 7x and a negative x cancels out. Bring down my 25 equals x, and then my 2 comes down as well. Now I'm left with x. 25 equals x plus 2 or minus 2. So I want to get x by itself. So in order to do that, I'm going to move my 2 over by doing the opposite of a subtraction, which is addition. Do that to both sides of the equation. My 2's cancel out, so I'm left with x on this side. 25 plus 2 gives me 27. So the answer to number 1 is 27. Does anyone need me to go over a step again where you don't quite understand what I did and need me to explain it again? Okay, so moving on to number 2. Oh, I forgot to read it to you. Okay, so for evidence 4, we're trying to find the body mass. So in order to break through the door, the criminal must have had a body mass index of at least 20. The following equations give the body mass index for each suspect. Use the data for each suspect and eliminate anyone who did not have a high enough body mass. So if my answer is below 20, I can eliminate the suspect. Okay, so moving on to number 2, I have 10 plus 2x equals 7x minus 20. So this is the right side of my equation, and this is the left side of my equation. Which side should I move the variables to, the right or the left? You guys tell me and I will do that. Either one is the correct answer. But tell me which one you want me to do, right or left. Left, okay. So I'm gonna move all my variables to the left side and then my numbers will go to the right side. So yes, moving it to the left will keep it positive. If I moved it to the right, it would make it negative. You can still solve it. It just is one extra step. So Evelyn would like us to move to the left, so I'm going to do that. So we have 2x. I'm going to subtract to move it. And then I'm going to do that to the other side. My 2x's cancel. And I have 7x minus 2x, which gives me 5x. Bring down my minus 20 equals, bring down my 10. Now I'm going to add 20 to both sides to get the x, isolate the x and get it by itself. 5x comes down. 10 plus 20 gives me 30. Now I'm going to divide by 5 to get the x by itself because it's being multiplied. 5 is being multiplied by the x. So I'm going to divide, and I'm going to do that to both sides. 5's cancel. I'm left with x equals 30 divided by 5 gives me 6. So for number 2, I have x equals 6. And so any number that is smaller than 20, we can eliminate the suspect. So suspect number 2 has been eliminated. Okay, moving on to number 3. I have x minus 50 equals negative 2x plus 10. So this time, once again, I have the right side and the left side of the equation. What side should I move the variable to? You guys can choose. Right, okay. So I'm going to move my 2x to the right side because Derek would like me to do that, and that is going to be perfect because it'll move my negative, it'll become a positive, and then I like working with positives instead of negatives. So I'm going to move the 2x to this side and get rid of it on this side. So those 2x's cancel. 1x plus 2x gives me 3x. Bring down my minus 50 equals bring down my 10. So now I'm going to get x by itself. So I'm going to move my 50. Do it to both sides of the equation. 10 plus 50 gives me 60. And then I bring down my 3x. Now I have a one-step equation. 3x equals 60. I'm going to get rid of the 3. It's being multiplied by the x, so I'm going to divide it. 60 divided by 3 gives me 20. So this suspect stays in because he had at least 20. So x equals 20. So that's evidence 4. Those are some example problems for you guys. Now I'm going to move on to evidence 5. It's kind of the same ones, just a little bit more distributive property of, so like with the parentheses, so doing the distributive property first. So back to my solving equations with variables on both sides little cheat sheet with the steps. I have step 1 is to simplify one or both sides of the equation if possible. So here I can simplify because I want to get rid of my parentheses. So we're going to do step 1. So I have negative 4x plus 27 equals negative 3x minus 7. So I'm going to take negative 3 and multiply it by everything inside the parentheses to distribute it. So negative 3 times x gives me a negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 7 gives me positive 21. And then I've simplified, and then this side stayed the same, so I'm just going to bring it down. All right, so now I have what we were working with on the last one in evidence 4 is the equations with variables on both sides. So I'm going to move my variables to one side and numbers to the other. I'm going to choose to bring over the 4 so that I can have a positive variable. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Those will cancel. -3 plus 4 gives me x. Bring down my 21, bring down my 27. All right, now I'm just left with x plus 21 equals 27. I want to get x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 21. And x equals 6. Does anyone need me to explain anything more for that one? Go over any steps? I'm going to do 2 more problems on this one, but just slow me down or stop me if you have questions. Okay. How do I know which side will make the x negative? So if I was looking at this equation, I have a -2x and a positive x. And so looking at it, whichever number is bigger is going to give me, I'm going to kind of know. So that 2x is negative, and if I bring over this x, I know it'll be negative because I'm subtracting this positive x, the opposite is subtracting. And then this one, since it's negative, I know I'll be adding it to the other side, and so that will give me a positive x. So you can kind of look at it like, oh, -2 and 1, but the opposite of -2 is positive 2, so 2 and 1 together would give me a positive number, but a negative and a negative would give me a negative number because a positive, the opposite of positive is subtract. And so like with 7 and 8, 8 is the bigger number, so I want to keep it on this side. So I'm going to move the 7 so that I can keep the bigger number and end with a positive number. So with our next equation, once we distribute, I'll tell you kind of how I know which side will make it negative. Okay, so for number 2, we're on evidence 5, suspect number 2. I have 8x plus 24 equals 6 parentheses x plus 5. So once again with my parentheses, I'm going to multiply 6 by everything inside the parentheses. So 6 times x gives me 6x. 6 times 5 gives me 30. So now I've broken up the parentheses and I'm left with just numbers and variables. So now looking at these, I know that 8x is larger than 6x. So I'm going to move my variables to the side with the larger number. So to get rid of the positive 6x, I'm going to subtract. And then I'll be left with a positive variable. Does that make sense, Abby? A little bit more sense at least? Just kind of whichever number is the bigger number, you want to move the variable to that side. It's kind of a general rule of thumb. Okay, so I have 2x now. These x's cancel. Bring down my 24. And then I'm going to bring down my 30. So now I have 2x plus 24 equals 30. So I want to get x by itself. So I'm going to move my number. In order to do that, I'm going to do the opposite to move it to the other side. So the opposite of positive is negative. 24. Do that to both sides of my equation. Bring down my 2x because the 24's cancel. And 30 minus 24 gives me 6. So now I just have a simple equation where I have to solve for x. The 2 is being multiplied by the x. So in order to get rid of the 2, I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And then the multiply and the divide will cancel, and I'll be left with 6 divided by 2 is x. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So for suspect number 2, my answer is 3. Anybody have any questions? Need me to go over anything or any steps again? Okay. Moving on to suspect 3. I have -40 plus 2x equals -2 parentheses 6x plus 6. So I'm going to once again distribute the -2 to everything inside the parentheses, or multiply. When I hear the word distribute, I know that means multiply. So -2, and then I'm going to multiply it by 6x and also by a positive 6. Okay. So -2 times 6x gives me a -12x, because a -2 times 6 is -12, and then the x just tags along. And then a -2 times 6 is -12. Bring down the left side because nothing changed. Okay, so now looking at these two numbers, I have 2x and -12x. The larger of the x's is the 2x, because -12 is smaller than 2x. If we looked on a number line, -12 would be all the way in the negatives and 2 would be in the positives, so it's the bigger number. So I'm going to move 12 to the left side so that my x's stay positive. So to move a negative, I add it. So the negative and positive 12 cancel. And then 12x plus 2x gives me 14x. Bring down my -40 and -12. And now I want to get the x by itself. So I'm going to move my number to the other side by doing the opposite. So the opposite of subtraction is addition. And what I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. So -12 plus 40 gives me 38. And then these cancel, and I bring down my 14x. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 14 to get x by itself. Those will cancel, and I'll be left with x. And then 38 divided by 14 gives me 2. Okay, so then it says up here, the CCTV cameras were hacked during the crime and turned off. The police were able to trace the digital signature of the computer, which they worked out to be x equals 8. Each of the suspects' laptops were confiscated by the police and their signatures were checked. The results are below. So if it's not x equals 8, we can cross out the suspects. So x equals 6 is not 8. X equals 3 is not 8, and x equals 2 is not 8. So we've crossed off 3 suspects, so your job is to find the x equals 8. So we have the rest of our class period to work on the assignments, the 5 evidence ones. If you need help, let me know, but we're just going to work on them the rest of class. Okay. If you have questions, you can just type them in the chat. I'm going to